We have multiple Minnesota Wild updates ahead of tonight's game against the Vegas Golden Knights, as multiple reports have come out about John Hynes changing the lines for this team in Game 3. We're going to be talking about that, what these changes could be, as well as the updates we have regarding these changes here in this video. And very quickly, before we jump into it, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We noticed that just over 96% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot for all of your Minnesota Wild news, you're in the right spot. So be sure to hit the sub button, stick around. We have a lot of updates coming throughout this playoffs, as the Wild had a stellar game in this Game 2 against the Vegas Golden Knights. And Game 3 is going to be looking very interesting. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video. But just jump straight into our first screenshot here. This comes from Michael Russo last night, going over what he had said about John Hynes. He said, "We met with John Hynes, and it sure sounds like they are considering at least for one game, changing the third defensive pairing. We will see about the fourth line as well." Now, when we saw this last night at 7:13 p.m. Newfoundland time, quite far away from Minnesota, but of course, knowing all this news coming out and all of these things, looking at it, what's going to happen, the Minnesota Wild changing a line after a Game 2 performance like that was something a lot of fans were really interested about. After the Game 1-2 change, where Marco Rossi got sent down to the fourth line, a lot of fans were considering that this was a right move. Why change it now? Why make these moves when you have, Marco Rossi, a guy who has played all 82 games this season, moving him down to the fourth line after what we saw this season in a very spectacular performance from him, going out and getting 60 points in 82 games and being one of the most consistent players and being one of the youngest players on the Minnesota Wild, nearly averaging 18 minutes time on ice and having on the fourth line. A lot of fans were concerned about that, but we ultimately saw exactly what we wanted with a major Minnesota Wild win here in Game 2, where everybody was clicking. There's no doubt about that. But after the performances of Line 3 and Line 4 in the previous two games during this series, a lot of changes were looking to be made by John Hynes. Now, we have that update here regarding those changes, and this comes out, about an hour ago here from John Hynes, or from Michael Russo, saying that the Minnesota Wild lineup, John Hynes says they've decided will stay the same. Now, after the Game 2 performance, I feel like you could not have touched it. There was very little things that you could be changed and actually find success throughout here. The lines were not great, and we'll talk about that, that fourth line was not too great. We'll talk about that here in a moment, going over the hockey stat cards and everything. But as we look to that game, look what the Wild came out, and look what the Wild did in Vegas against that Vegas team. There is no way you make that change here in this game, regardless of how the game, was going to look today. One more game, you stick it out. See how that goes once again. Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, absolutely incredible. Matt Boldy has been one of the best players on this Wild team here in these playoffs, arguably the best, and was out there today going and skating on this ice, was on the ice before practice even started in shoes and socks and just shooting on the net, and goes to show how much he's really putting into this series. But with the Wild making these moves and the Wild kind of looking at the lines here, we know that the way that this team is looking right now has certainly been the best all season. Finally healthy. Finally have everybody going and being able to go. And we're looking at the top six. There's no way you're touching anybody in that. Those two lines have been phenomenal here so far in these playoffs. Line 3 and Line 4 is where things started to get a bit interesting. Marco Rossi and Ryan Hartman being swapped for first game going to second. Marco Rossi being on the fourth with Yakov Trenin and Justin Brazeau. Not the greatest look for them on that ice, but certainly, if they click, will be a very good line. We've expected that, we know that, and especially against the Vegas team, who are still very good, but if we can get all lines firing, that's exactly what we wanted to see. And the reports for John Hynes were coming out from Michael Russo was that it would be someone else coming into the lineup, likely meaning that Justin Brazeau would be out of this lineup. I don't see Yakov Trenin, I don't see Marco Rossi being taken out of the lineup, and I really don't even see anybody in that third line being taken out, knowing the way that they play. Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman, two dogs. Gustav Nyquist, the guy they acquired, still very, very good and still has that ability to show his playoff experience, but Justin Brazeau did seem like the odd one out here. And as we head over to the defense as well, which was likely to have a change according to Michael Russo, I don't really know what it would have been. Perhaps a Zach Bogosian, a Zeev Boyum maybe have come out of this lineup waiting for him to finally get that experience, but as you know, you wouldn't get that experience if you're not playing, which is something the Wild were really trying to tackle. But once again, the defense has been very solid. Jonas Brodin, Brock Faber, Jacob Middleton, Jared Spurgeon, two very, very solid lines, and having Zeev Boyum out there with Zach Bogosian, a guy who's had so much experience in the NHL, is a very good line as well. But we now know they're going to be staying the same. Something to watch tonight as we do look towards Game 3, and something as we look towards what changes could be made for a Game 4, regardless of the Minnesota Wild win or lose. And let's hope it's a major win at home. Get those wins going, and hopefully go back and get some big series started for the Minnesota Wild. But as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the game cards here as well, going over why this could be a change. And when we're looking at this once again, you see on the bottom, Zeev Boyum, Zach Bogosian, Freddie Gaudreau, Matt Zuccarello, Marcus Foligno. Ignore the other three at the end there, but Zeev Boyum, Zach Bogosian. That's from Game 1 when Vegas won 4-2. Goes to show why there was a thought process behind a change there. It makes sense. Zeev Boyum not having too much NHL experience and putting him into a playoff game against one of the best teams in the NHL. Very tough scenario for him, and ultimately, wasn't the greatest, but certainly showed the potential. Zach Bogosian, someone who is on the older side of things, playing against a very quick team like Vegas, certainly doesn't help out that much, but goes to show once again that that's why the reasons or the ideas behind these potential line changes. But when we head to last game, 5-2 win for Minnesota, look at the bottom there again. Zeev Boyum, Zach Bogosian. Then you go up and then see Yakov Trenin, Marco Rossi, and Justin Brazeau. That fourth line there was also not being great, and goes to show that there could have been changes made. But I think the final score of this game, and really the way this outcome played out, with everybody up top that you see, Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, Brock Faber, Jonas Brodin, Joel Eriksson Ek, I can name them all, that this lineup was doing exactly what they needed to, and if they tighten up those final two lines, the last defensive pairing, the fourth line, the Minnesota Wild will be in a phenomenal spot heading into this game. I think that John Hynes wanted to give him one more chance. Don't change anything if it's not broken. The win was the win, and obviously that's what matters. But if there are some major discrepancies here tonight in these lines, that's when you make your change. That's when you go out of it. So I don't hate the idea by John Hynes here today. Let me know what you think, and I think that's what he wanted to kind of sleep on, as Michael Russo was talking about here from these tweets and these kind of meetings that he had last night. It makes sense that the third defensive pairing and the fourth line were up for discussion, but you give them another chance. You go until you lose, and that's when you make the change. And if things are in a detrimental spot, then you go and make the change. But now the Wild are tied 1-1 here, heading back to Minnesota tonight. We are looking good for this, ladies and gentlemen. So let me know what you think about these potential moves. Did you want to see anybody else thrown in? If so, who? How do you feel about Zeev Boyum? Let me know what you think. I think the Wild are perfectly in the spot they want to be right now. Obviously, it would have been nice to get 2 in Vegas, but you can't expect that, first of all, against Vegas. Second of all, in Vegas, 2 very, very tough ways to play with the location, with the team. But the Wild are playing good with the roster that they have now, and of course with a lot of people punching above their weight class. Very, very hard to complain about this, and hopefully we see another big one of these tonight. Gus Bus staying hot. He's been played very well last game, and hopefully we spark the Vegas defense again, because Adin Hill, knock on wood, was not the best last game. Let's hope it does it again. But like I said, let me know what you think in the comments below about these potential changes. Obviously, nothing right yet, but let me know what you think about John Hynes' decision. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.